Hello, everyone. I'm Val Hill, and tonight I'm going to read you my diary. November 6th, 2019. Anxiety causes you to dress in a way that signals you're not the relationship type. You don the tough but troubled souls with a heart of gold, uniform of jeans, boots, and a leather jacket. And then you realize so did Fonzie. As a musician from Nashville, I'm tired of hearing the word unique. Your band isn't unique, Brad. Y'all sound like you got high and then tried to play Dark Side of the Moon. If your band truly was unique, you wouldn't have to say it. It extends to people in general, too. It's always the loudest person declaring, I'm me. I'm just so weird and random, but that's just who I am. No, honey. You clock in, clock out, and go home to binge watch How I Met Your Mother, just like the rest of your friend group. I once worked with a woman in college who liked to emphasize how spontaneous she was. 3 hours into a conversation I was trying to avoid, she finally told me the grand spontaneous thing she did on a Friday night. She went through the drive-thru at McDonald's at 2 a.m. because she was hungry. And I know what you're thinking. What crazy thing happened at McDonald's? No, that was the end of her story. The same woman once looked at me right in the eye and said, "Your face has a lot of genre." No context clues, so I just said, "Yeah, rom-com 1 minute, horror movie the next." And she said, "No, you know what I mean. You could be a lot of different ages." Yeah, I'm the one who got that word wrong. The same woman thought telling stories apparently had a lot of build up beforehand. I mentioned that was a 3-hour story. The first 2 hours and 45 minutes of that story were just her going, "Y'all, guess what I did?" You would try to ignore her. And about 20 minutes later, "Y'all, guess what I did?" Until the last 15 minutes of that 3 hours were up and you finally knew she went through the drive-thru. It's a very frustrating experience to tell people that I'm an improviser, because most people don't know what that is, and that's fine. But then I have to explain it. I've mostly cited Whose Line Is It Anyway as a reference for short form improv. And for long form improv, I just tell people it's like a play, but without a script. And while I've had those conversations several times, most of the time, it doesn't make it to that point. I was at Moe's Southwest Grill, and the guy making my food was very nice and friendly, and he asked me if I was excited for my weekend. And I say yes. Actually, my weekend started on Thursday. I performed in the Third Coast Improv Fest. He said, "Cool. So, are you in a band?" I informed him, "No. It's an improv comedy festival." And he replied, "Oh, I've always thought I'd be good at stand-up. I've got a lot of dirty jokes." And that's normally the moment I abort mission. I love learning languages, but I took 2 years of Spanish in high school, and all I remember is "No me importa, déjame en paz, mi hamburguesa come mi amigo," which translated means, I don't care, leave me alone, my hamburger ate my friend. The problem with language learning is there's no practicality in what they teach you. Even in the simplest sentences, such as, the sky is blue. I haven't had to say the sky is blue since I had to convince my preschool teacher that I knew my colors. When I was learning Italian, one of the sentences I had to translate was l'elefanta mangiò una mela, which means the elephant ate an apple. Not once in my life have I ever needed to say the elephant ate an apple. I took a Latin class in college. In Latin, they don't mess around with teaching you the basic categories like colors, animals, and food. The first Latin phrase I had to translate in class was nihil me terret, which means nothing scares me. It only got more dramatic from there. If it wasn't about betrayal, death, or bravery, we didn't learn it. Which is fine for reading ancient Latin text, but horrible if you're trying to have a conversation with the Pope. All bosses are crazy bosses. Even when I've been a boss, all of my underlings would have called me crazy, and they would have been right. My first boss was arrested twice. He was a cool guy. Also probably the chillest boss I ever had. My second boss used me as a stand-in therapist. For reference, I was in college at the time, and sober wouldn't have really been a word used to describe me. I'm not sure whether that should reflect more on my therapist skills or more on her decisions to keep making bad choices. Then there was the worst boss I ever had. If something was unprofessional, she'd do it. Get her nails done while she was supposed to be on a conference call. Check. Lie to her employees to start drama amongst them. Check. Steal from the company. Check. She once ordered a $200 steamer and then took it home. And it was with the store's budget from our supplier. Her boss was well aware of this, and instead of just talking to her saying, "Hey, what'd you do that for?" she would just come around to the rest of us and say, "Well, did she bring it back?" And we'd all just stare at her and say, "Well, no, she stole it." I have a lot of friends, a lot more friends than I agreed to have. Classmates and coworkers call me their friend. I haven't figured out a way to tell them. It took me 19 years to call my best friend my best friend. I mean, clearly my best friend in 19 years. I'm going to need a little bit more time for classmates and coworkers. I'm really good at getting the maid of honor best person role in weddings and then losing the friendships. The first time it happened, we just grew apart. The second time, his wife hated me. She didn't like that I told her I didn't appreciate that she didn't respect my decisions. For instance, when she wanted me to date her friend and I said no. Or when she wanted me to date her other friend and I said no. I'm so glad I don't live with a married couple anymore. I don't like living with married couples. You just end up having a front row seat to all the reasons they shouldn't be married. Every day. The last married couple I lived with weren't married at the time, but they were dating. I was close friends with the guy, but I really didn't know his girlfriend. We'd only met once. At our first dinner together, once we moved in, which was about a month later, uh, he threw cucumbers on the floor because he heard that cats were afraid of them because they thought that they were snakes. But our cats were cool with it. Then he started talking about watching a cat documentary on Animal Planet. And I had no reason to doubt him, so I just believed him and kept listening. His girlfriend, on the other hand, did not believe him. Her response was, "Oh, really? You watch Animal Planet?" "Yeah." "Oh, really? You watched Animal Planet?" "Yeah, I watched the cat documentaries on Animal Planet." I was like, "Bro, the answer is no. I don't even understand what this pop quiz is about, but I know the answer is no. I do not know why she's so offended that you watch cat documentaries on Animal Planet when she has 2 cats. She's not even a dog person, and you're allergic to cats. I would think this guy loves me, he has a reason to hate cats, and yet he is trying to understand them better for me." The 3 of us didn't have dinner together at home for another year. Yeah, my roommates were interesting to live with. I can remember she saw on his email that he had bought a ring that was listed under the engagement section of the website he bought it from. And she noticed that he'd been hiding his keys when he came home from work in the morning. One morning, he forgot to do that. And so I received a text from her that said, "Come downstairs." So I did, which ended up in me following her out the door saying, "Hey, no, wait, I don't think we should do this," while she got into his car, found the UPS box, opened it up, and looked at the engagement ring. A couple months later, he still hadn't proposed. So naturally, she thought this meant he was going back to his ex, who lived 2 hours away. 2 days before my birthday, I was out celebrating with my family when I got a text from her that said, "Come home, we're getting drunk." I said, "No, I'm at my grandmother's right now." 10 minutes later, I got another text that said, "Come home, let's get drunk." This made me stay even longer at my grandmother's house. When I got home, finally, she was crying on the couch, clearly drunk. Her friend was there trying to talk some sense into her, periodically taking her phone away from her because she wouldn't stop texting her boyfriend, and she wouldn't stop calling him while he was at work, even though he'd asked her to stop. So I went straight upstairs to my room and eventually felt bad, so I went back downstairs and tried to get her to drink water, which she refused to do until he finally texted her and said, "You know, you should really probably listen to them." She was also hacked into his Facebook account at the time. I just looked at her friend, who I barely knew, and said, "Please don't leave." And she didn't until about 1 a.m., which is also about the time I went back upstairs to my room and avoided the entire situation. I still don't know if he's aware of all the instances where she was snooping through his car or his sock drawer even later to find this ring before he proposed. But he proposed shortly after that, and they were secretly married a year later. I was his best person, and we had a small ceremony where we snuck onto a park grounds at night, and it was just me as the best person, the maid of honor, the bride, the groom, the officiant, no family involved. The family did not know that they were married for a year before they put on a family wedding. Once we snuck off the pavilion, we ended up going to Outback. When I made it back home, I presented my gift to them for their secret wedding. I was the only person who got them a gift. It was a black leather custom made with gold embossed letters and a drawing of a tree with their initials carved into a heart on that tree. And underneath it said, "Nesting since 2019. so that they could hang it up and their parents wouldn't know that they got married a year before. And all she did was complain about how the bag had cows with Santa hats on it. I wasn't giving her my bag. She said we shouldn't celebrate Christmas. I'm a December baby. We don't celebrate Christmas early.